LNG projects in Nigeria so that we can better utilize our gas.
Expert in oil and gas encourages more investment in liquefied natural gas.
African Bar Association brainstorms on African Free Trade Zone Agreement.
Whosoever that is found wanting will answer his father's name. Will answer his father's name. So that including Kolo Haruna.
House of Representatives investigates job racketeering in federal ministries, departments, and agencies.
Good Morning Nigeria today discusses improving the well-being of senior citizens.
In very many ways, old age can be a blessing because the whole experience of life is behind you. All the longings are over, and one is said to be once again childlike. Not many people are lucky to attain old age. When one comes of age, it can be a very fruitful and wonderful part of life. But unfortunately, most human beings suffer in their old age for different reasons. And this is why the National Senior Citizens Center was established to cater for the social welfare of citizens aged between 70 and above.
Now, the remit of the National Senior Citizens Center is rooted in the National Policy on Aging for Older Persons in Nigeria, and that was passed in 2021, as well as, of course, other regional and international instruments, with the aim of guaranteeing the security, relative independence, participation, comprehensive care, self-fulfillment, and dignity of older persons in society.
That's indeed correct, Kinsley. And the National Senior Citizens Center is the first distinct national corporate body and dedicated statutory entity focused on the inclusion of senior citizens in sustainable development. And this has instituted operational efficiency to the statutory management of older persons in Nigeria, and has assumed the responsibility to promote and ensure the enjoyment of all human rights of all older persons in Nigeria.
Now, this Senior Citizens Center held its maiden dialogue earlier this month, and that was on the 2nd, Monday, to discuss issues affecting senior citizens and how their experience and wealth of knowledge could be leveraged for increased national development and effective service delivery. Now, the dialogue marked the first major outing of the center since the constitution of its board.
Now, the center launched its strategic roadmap in January this year to galvanize national, subnational, and international stakeholders to collaboratively see resilient pathways to improving quality of life and well-being of our senior citizens. And this gives a clear and a realistic direction which transcends political cycles and indeed jurisdictions on how to accelerate inclusion of all older persons in national development. And Kingsley, I've not had much of that at the National Assembly or even the State Houses of Assembly in terms of legislating over the issue of taking care or providing care for older persons, as is done elsewhere across the globe.
That's right. Well, the Director General of the Center, Dr. M.M. Mokaro, has commended Nigerian senior citizens for their resilience in the face of hardship over the years. Now, the advocacy for the strengthening of partnerships and application of the strategic policy document to properly guide the mainstreaming of older persons into various national social investment programs is ongoing.
In the quest to better the lot and well-being of senior citizens in Nigeria, what are those priority areas being looked into? What are the milestones and achievements so far recorded since the establishment of the center? How far with the advocacy for partnerships? What is being done to ensure proper application of the strategic roadmap policy document? These pertinent questions and more will be interrogated as we discuss improving the well-being of senior citizens in Nigeria. I am Kirian. It's always a pleasure to welcome you to your flagship show, Good Morning Nigeria.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Kiria to also welcome you to the program, live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority and from our headquarters studios in Abuja, the nation's capital. In the course of the program, we shall, of course, have a user complimentary segment, which will be business. We also have newspaper review. For now, we're taking the morning news, and Zenret Digmon, our colleague, is right here in the studios. Good morning, Zenret.
Good morning, Kingsley, Kieran. And here's the morning news. The Nigerian government must encourage more investment in the oil and gas industry, especially the liquefied natural gas, LNG, to harness the full benefits of the sector. A former executive vice chairman of ExxonMobil, Solomon Oladuni, gave the advice while fielding questions from State House correspondents after a visit to President Bola Tinubu.
We need to develop more LNG projects in Nigeria so that we can better utilize our gas to also improve the electricity supply into the country, because most of these turbines are driven by gas, and then we need to produce more of it, and it's also a clean energy.
The Federal Inland Revenue Service and the Joint Tax Board are working towards the harmonization of taxes for increased revenue generation and creation of a more friendly, ease of doing business environment. Stakeholders believe that these measures will attract both domestic and foreign investment as well as enhance economic growth.
Where the number of taxes at federal, state, and local government will be single digits. In other words, it will not exceed 9. Just imagine we can do that. We will really have solved a big problem.
More of these taxes that we have, the less of the revenue we generate. So what do we want to do? We reduce those number of taxes, block leakages in the tax system, and raise more revenue for the 3 tiers of government.
Senate has confirmed 45 persons as ministers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria out of the 48 nominees on the list submitted by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. 3 others are yet to be confirmed.
The Senate has so far approved and confirmed the nomination of about 45 ministers out of the total nominees of 48 ministers sent to us by the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The others are still awaiting security clearance.
And the House of Representatives has assured that anyone found culpable of job racketeering in federal ministries, departments and agencies will face the full wrath of the law. Chairman House Ad Hoc Committee investigating job racketeering Yusuf Gagdi stated this during interrogation of management and staff of the Federal Character Commission over allegations of selling jobs.
People, like almost 25 of them. One will pay 1 million, the other will pay 1.5 million, all to my personal account. After which she instructed me to give her the cash, all in cash installments. There's no transfer, there's nothing, just for me to withdraw through POS, from this POS to that POS, cash installment, and take it to her. I was never at any time involved in selling jobs to anyone. I only acted based on instructions, sir.
Key players in the justice sector are brainstorming on how Africans can take advantage of the African Free Trade Zone Agreement. This is the core of the 2023 African Bar Association Conference holding in Pretoria, South Africa. The conference identified observance of the rule of law as the solution to the challenges on the African continent. It also stressed the need for legal practitioners to X-ray the free trade agreement in order to promote economic activities towards empowering the people. The Office of the National Security Advisor has commenced policy planning and strategy development for a holistic approach to the ongoing disarmament, demobilization and reintegration program for countering violent extremism in Nigeria. The stakeholders' engagement is to enhance community-level understanding on the concept and new practice in the approach.
Efforts need to be reconfigured in policies, tools, and practices to address the diversity of our security challenges orchestrated by different non-state armed groups in the country.
That's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Kieran after this break.
All right, thanks for still staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. Now let's talk business. To stimulate economic growth and create conducive environment for businesses to thrive in Nigeria, experts advocate proper infrastructure in place. Let's get more of that from Aleka Obanachi Arwa on Business News.
The government has pledged to boost food security and revive the economy by supporting small and medium-scale enterprises, MSMEs subsector, among other things. To achieve this, experts say there must be proper implementation in place, in addition to monitoring and evaluation mechanisms.
Concern is not just the 500 to 1 million naira that they will give to MSMEs to do business. We still go back to what we are saying. There are basic infrastructures that a basic SME need: a road, electricity, and quite a number of things. If I can access 500,000 naira, 1 million, give me 1 million naira as an MSME owner, or as a small scale or nano MSMEs or blue chips companies that want to give to 50,000 naira, I will still spend it in these inadequate infrastructures.
Meanwhile, recent figures released by the National Pension Commission, PENCOM, shows that pension assets rose from 14.99 trillion naira in December 2022 to 16.76 trillion naira in the first 6 months of 2023, while the number of contributors increased from 9.86 million to 10 million, following the signing of additional 146 contributors within the period under review. Director General of National Pension Commission says the figures are still below expectations, given Nigeria's estimated population of over 200 million. She encouraged more public and private sector employers to sign their employees onto the scheme. The contributory pension scheme was introduced in Nigeria in 2004. With Business News, Alika Opanachi Arwa.
Thank you very much, Alika, for the Business News package on Good Morning Nigeria. Up next, we'll take a look at some of the papers we have this morning.
And here we have Chukwudi Okoliwaja, as always, to do today's analysis of what the papers are saying. And I'd like to welcome him to the program. Chukwudi.
You have to report accurately. I'm here to join you in analyzing.
Well,
because you make it more robust.
You are the chief analyst.
I don't, yeah. Kingsley, good morning.
Good morning, the analyst in chief.
There he goes again.
Okay, we have a paper set to review this morning. Let's begin with the leadership newspaper. Above the name flag, NMD PRA corroborates Navy, says MT praise cleared for HPFO Act. As a matter of fact, all these abbreviations just not it for me. Now look for them on page 18 of the leadership newspaper. ICJ judgment: no land will be ceded to Cameroon. According to Governor Otu, that's on page 16. Now, going down after the name flag, we have hard reforms necessary to ramp up tax revenues, according to FIRS. It's on page 7. KMO apologizes to Senate over past conduct. ECOWAS threat, Niger junta shorts airspace. Mali, Burkina Faso affirms support. It's on page 7. Now, Tinubu cabinet. Senate hands confirmation of El-Rufai, Okotete, Danladi on security clearance. Clears Alake, Maragi, Wike, Tunji Ojo, Pate, Beta Edu, 39 others. KMO begs senators for forgiveness. All right. Asman Air suspends operation, sends staff away. It's on page 20. WAEC withholds results from Zamfara, Niger, 6 others over indebtedness. It's on page 8. No plans to impeach my deputy governor, as according to Obasake. You get all that on page 21. And let me quickly run through Daily Sun newspaper. Daily Sun newspaper. Also, WAEC withholds WASC results of 8 states over debt. Now, Niger, ECOWAS leaders perfect action plan. Meet on Thursday as Mali, Burkina Faso plan to send delegation. MBF advises Tinubu to focus on Nigeria's problems. It will be useless venture, Air Chief Ochola warns. It's on page 6. Terrorists opt for negotiations as NAF intensifies bombardment on strongholds in Northwest. It's on page 4. Abiola persuaded my father to join Abacha's government, Jakonde's son, Shey. He will be remembered for good deeds, Senolu and editors say. Now look for that on page 8 of the Sun newspaper. Federal government to remove taxes on tomatoes, raw food items soon, says JTB chairman. It's on page 27. Seplat Energy's gas revenue grows to $63.7 million. It's on page 2. Akpabio promises to take up Southeast case for appointment of more ministers. It's on page 6. Now, Senate suspends confirmation of El-Rufai, Danladi, Okotete over security reports. Chaos, drama in chamber over KMO. All that on page 6. Tinubu Atiku hail Falcons performance against England. It's on page 30. Kinsley.
All right, we also have the Punch newspaper, and above the nameplate, the 3 headlines. Senate refuses to confirm El-Rufai, Danladi, and female nominee. Niger mega rail project threatened. Over 1,000 trucks trapped. Obasake dismisses impeachment plot, says Shaibu planning APC defection. Federal government withdraws contempt suit against Labour, and NLC may suspend strike. Solicitor General writes NLC, and Falana says FG suspends suit over Tinubu's intervention. NLC, TUC await FG on palliative agreement, call special meeting over planned strike. Now, there are 3 photographs there on the front page of the Punch newspaper, and it's captured in the headline. The photographs, of course, by the caption, would tell us that the former Character Commission, that's Federal Character Commission officer, admits taking bribes and indicts chairman. Now, this is at this House of Reps ad hoc committee on job racketeering in MDAs. And you can see some of the members of the Federal Character Commission in photographs 1 and 3. And on the right is the chairman of the Character Commission, who is holding aloft a copy of the Quran, which she was swearing by as a way of rebutting the allegations that she collected bribe from one of her aides, who claimed that monies were paid by persons seeking employment, and after the monies were paid into his account, he downloaded them from ATMs or POS and gave her cash. That's at the House of Reps. 214 Gombe drug suspects arrested in 7 months. Protests as gunmen kill couple and clerics' children in Plateau. FBN, that's First Bank of Nigeria shareholders protest AGM suspension, demand regulators' intervention. Details on page 22. Chukudi.
Thank you, Kingsley. former Federal Character Commission officer mistaking bribes in DICE chairman. This arose from drama that happened when a hearing, took place. For us as journalists, it's an immediate headline grabber. They said she did admit, but for us, it's going to pick more seriousness when proper investigation reveals factuality, which we work on. It's a holy book, really, in journalism. Facts. Quickly, heavy rainfall has drenched Norway and Sweden, causing a train to derail and roads to flood, Al Jazeera reports. Norway's Prime Minister, Jonas Gahr Støre, said he expected extreme weather events to become more frequent. This is an effect of climate change, with wilder and wetter weather in Norway, Støre told public broadcaster NRK. And I said, gentlemen, this is becoming alarming. I hope that the white man's land does not become too uninhabitable in the years ahead, that it begins to eye Africa, because we seem to be safer here. I know that Lokoja floods frighten us a bit sometimes, but you heard the other time that Death Valley hit about 46 degrees Celsius. That's a patch of California, the hottest part of the earth. And this gives you worry. I pray that the United States, China, and the other European powers agree on carbon emission, so that the warming that is largely blamed for the heating up and other things that happen across the world, are brought under control. Let's put all that in check. Now, domestically, FG withdraws a contempt suit against a Labour NLC based suspend strike. I say domestically because stepping back to Nigeria matters a lot to me. We hear that the Solicitor General has written to NLC, Falana. He says FG suspends suit over Tinubu's intervention. Now, gentlemen, we have always said here that if dialogue is going to end it all, let us enlist it as early as possible. Even in war situation, dialogue usually ends most wars. Some are hanging. North Korea and South Korea have not quite signed a peace agreement. But largely speaking, dialogue does it. So we keep on asking the NLC, the federal government, TUC, to come together, be tactical, strategic, and ultimately effective in terms of resolving what matters are at stake. Man-hours are lost in Nigeria without anybody batting an eyelid, as if our economy is anything can happen matter. It's not so. It shouldn't be so. I think we should quickly address that. Lastly, from my side, Senate refuses to confirm El-Rufai, that's the former Kaduna State Governor, then Senator Abubakar Danladi from Taraba State, then female nominee, former Nexim Bank MD Stella Okotete from Delta State. I know I talked about that lady's youthfulness the first time we mentioned it. Well, journalists or editors, again, have exercise discretion. This paper is talking about refusing, that's talking about the Punch. The other paper that Kingsley mentioned says their fate hangs on security checks and all that. I like the hangs. Senate refuses is a bit, conclusive. It might not be the situation. What if the security people come tomorrow and say these people can still be cleared? So let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and see which way the cat jumps. That's my take on it.
I'm just wondering if security says someone is not cleared. I seem not to understand fully what that means, because at the first instance, you have released a report, that necessitated the withdrawal of the ascension of the Senate, right? So there might be a problem somewhere. So, but nobody knows the level of such problem as to say, look, these people have been withdrawn, even if it's temporarily. There must be something. And such thing should be further investigated, so to speak. Perhaps that's why they are delaying But for me, this one, let's not I take this one. Let them do their thing because
let them do their thing because among them there, politics, high stakes politics. The sort Kirian and Chuku they would never get to know about. It happens.
I think that we should also recognize that security reports, security clearance, or any such other synonyms often can be very woolly.
Woolly, I like that.
And disclose. Senate confirmation, clearance and confirmation, the security entities will do their work.
I think what happened in this circumstance is the fact that, normally it takes a lot of time for presidents-elect in Nigeria to come up with this with a cabinet. You recall the last incident of 2015, it took almost 6 months or thereabout, to get that done. And in terms of a selection that you said, that they ought to have been investigated before the president forwards the names to the Senate, which is the right thing to do. But I'm not sure it's done. Because if it is done at that point, it will not get to the point of a Senate now reviewing. Because what happens is this, the Senate also, like you said, they have the power, the Senate members have the power to do a review of whatever report, even they may have received from any security.
Ultimate power belongs to them.
Exactly.
And they have the final say.
Exactly. So the most
if you say,
investigated.
The point I'm just making is as follows. The security agencies would normally do their work, right? They will do their work. But let it not be that it is the security agencies that are now clearing ministerial nominees. If there's an issue, we say we can't. The Senate has the powers to say we will not confirm a nominee, even after the confirmation hearings. It is their power, and they don't have to give any reason.
Oh, sure.
Okay, I understand that.
Yes. But it is possible that because petitions came against some of the candidates, against some of the nominees, you say let's go there. But the work of the security agencies, the point I'm making is that under constitutional law and constitutional practice, the work of the security agencies is, I want to state this, ancillary.
Advisory.
Ancillary.
Exactly. You are right. Now, like this story, federal government to remove taxes on tomatoes, raw food items, and so on. When I read, I was wondering, how much of tomato importation are we doing? Because tomato, for instance, so it means we import fresh tomatoes into this country.
Fresh ones?
Fresh ones, yes.
I hope I don't parade ignorance, stupidly.
Federal government to remove taxes.
I thought that the canning of tomato, the puree, is the problem we have.
But
that's what I thought.
To remove tax, okay, is it on imported, is it on the, because I'm sure it's raw tomato, because it said, and other raw food items. So it is talking about raw tomatoes being imported from, I'm sure, South Africa.
Well, I'm not sure. I refrain.
It's a curious issue you have raised. Let me say this: in Lagos, I mean, Ghana tomatoes. I think here out to Abuja, you will be hearing Cameroon pepper
and Cameroon banana.
Cameroon banana, some of those very unusually large ones. It's only Cameroon pepper. I don't think that's what the taxes are about. But I will be more concerned if they were saying that they were going to remove the levies and taxes on, say, tomato paste or tomato puree. Why am I saying this? Chief Eric Umofia, Erisco Foods, his one cardinal complaint, it tells you this. It says, look, when they say difficulty in doing business in Nigeria, it says when you are setting up a business in Nigeria, you know that power supply is epileptic. So provide for it. That's not a challenge. It is the waivers that they give to importers, for instance, of tomato puree, tomato paste, and other items that now will result in dumping and make the items being imported cheaper than those who are producing locally.
And kill domestic effort.
That is Umefia's argument. To say, look, let these people not come and destroy our business. We are also producing here. Dangote went into the cultivation of tomato plantation one time. I think they also had dancer foods and so on and so forth. That is the issue. What is the policy? What is the reason behind this policy? Say you want to remove. Have we become so hungry?
And the Umofe you're talking about has a tomato puree making plant in Katsina.
Precisely.
And it has tomato farms as well. Right, so, you know, if we curb local producers, then you're not preparing to feed the nation. Because a nation that cannot feed itself has not even started talking about development. Because the development begins when you can feed yourself. And I begin to think on how to add value, you know, to what you have.
We need to learn from the likes of China and India.
Exactly, and they started just like that, gradually. I recall in those days in the 80s and 90s, early 80s rather, in India, you know, locked in itself. You don't even bring in even pomade. You don't bring in pomade in India. My friend who was a student in India then, when it comes to Nigeria, he'll be buying pomade and you know, Vaseline.
There was what I would call unku cream.
Unku cream, you know.
Oh my God!
You buy them.
Remember the promotional?
Yes,
the advert.
Yes, you will pass it in buy. I said,
oh my God! So you know.
Yes. What are you doing with this? He said, look, when he gets to school, he will be selling to ladies, African ladies, in his school, because he can't import. He cannot
got into business a long time ago, you know.
And now today in cosmetics industry, India is one of the best in the world.
Yeah. Some of these measures, I'm sure when the stories are more detailed or more elaborate, we'll get to know what's happening. You recall, Kirian, probably about 2 years or so ago, they said they lifted the ban on the exportation of charcoal from Nigeria. And I said, oh, so you want us to further go kill off the remaining trees that we have in the country?
More desertification.
Where are you exporting charcoal to? Let them now produce their own charcoal. Let them go and let them denude their own forests to produce their own charcoal. Here we are battling desertification, we are battling deforestation. He said the ban on the exportation as I don't know. You know, if you go to the wharf now, I'm sure you will see container loads of charcoal, as well as, of course, container loads of scrap metal, some of it stolen from our railway lines and so on and so forth.
You know, it's not really funny. Anyway, it's not funny indeed, because charcoal, you know, Dubai buys charcoal, whether wet or dry charcoal. They buy any, because they have sun, they have you know sunlight in the place, so they buy and dry. So many Nigerians are exporting to Dubai, for instance, and they, again across the world. And like you said, and there is no deliberate plan on tree planting. That's another thing. No deliberate plan on tree planting. In the areas we call desertification in the north, we can replant the trees and use drip irrigation to raise forests. That's what is being done across the globe. It's a very simple technology. You know, Chukwudi.
Well, Chukwudi, I hope we get to hear the bottom of the allegations that the House of Reps ad hoc committee has been listening to. I had said the other time that, look, the president has the prerogative if the commission, that's the Federal Character Commission, has failed in its responsibilities. That's to say the current members, that's the commissioners and the chairperson, they have failed in their responsibility, aside from whatever criminal prosecutions that might arise from the conclusions of the work of the ad hoc committee. You go send the commissioners packing so that we have a clean slate.
I think the admission is too public to be ignored.
That's right.
Something is likely to happen from this incident.
Yeah, by the way, I know we're going to wrap up now. I'm sorry, this in fact, this shouldn't even be a by the way issue. Lateef Jakonde, one of Nigeria's finest journalists, was honored yesterday with the inaugural lecture in Lagos, and positive sentiments were expressed about him. And this is particularly important for those who are not very familiar with Lateef Kayode Jakonde, LKJ. He later became governor of Lagos, and that was from 1979 until December 31st.
One of the finest governors of Lagos.
One of the areas then, Baba Kekere?
Yeah, that was Baba Kekere.
He was replicating Awol's exploits.
Precisely, and unfortunately, you know, the political intrigues of the UPN also affected him. Because people, but as a journalist, Lateef Jakonde, one of our finest, As governor of Lagos, he was the one that set up Radio Lagos.
Exactly.
He was the one that set up LTV, that is Lagos Television.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the groundwork for the establishment of LASU, that is Lagos State.
What about those housing schemes?
That housing schemes.
That set of leaders, those set of leaders who had there in 79, I mean, they did a lot. Like Jim Mobodo did. You know, the ETV, well, the state TV in Enugu right now, was about the first television station to own by a state in Africa. And that was, I think, 81. He was able to do that within 9 months. He brought Israeli experts to raise that.
In the short interview I had with Chief Edwin Clark yesterday, I asked him what happened between your time and our time. Talk for another day, gentlemen.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. So, but we applaud the organizers of the lecture. Jakonde was one of the founders of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. He was the first African to have been the chair of the executive board of IPI, that is International Press Institute based in Vienna, Austria, one of the strongest advocates for press freedom worldwide.
All right, gentlemen, we call it a day. Chukwudi, we'll see you again tomorrow.
You always whet my appetite,
yes.
But I must bounce back to sector.
Exactly. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Thank you.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria only on the network service of NTA. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be focusing attention on how to care for the older people. I am part of it, and I'm sure my friends are also part of it. So we'll be deliberating on that when we return. Don't go away.
How do you mean that you are sure?
According to an African proverb, an elderly person at home is like a living golden treasure. This underscores the wealth of knowledge that senior citizens possess. In Nigeria, the 2009 National Population Commission Census report shows that the number of the elderly is increasing and higher in the rural areas. Some experts say while growing old is usually feared because of the multifaceted problems associated with aging, conditions such as insufficient savings after retirement, poor access to health care, poor dietary intakes, and poverty affect the elderly in Nigeria. They stress that changing demographics, in addition to the breakdown of the family structure and absence of a social security system, presents unique challenges to the elderly. A major challenge, they pointed out, is developing policies and appointing personnel capable of understanding and responding to the current social priorities and complex needs of an increasing aging population. In 2018, former President Muhammadu Buhari signed 8 bills into law, one of them the Senior Citizen Center Bill. The Older Persons Law came with the promise of a new dawn for Nigeria's elderly citizens aged 60 and above. It aims to improve the quality of life and well-being of senior citizens, establishing the National Senior Citizen Center, NSCC, that is saddled with a mandate to identify the needs of senior citizens and to cater for them. While notable achievements have been recorded by the NSCC that includes grants for poor and vulnerable older persons, entrepreneurship skills, capacity building, income security, health and social care, among others, what more can be done towards alleviating the challenges senior citizens face in Nigeria? These and more will form the crux of discussions as guests speak to issues concerning senior citizens in Nigeria shortly.
Right, thank you very much, Abdul Salam Jibril, for that background. Now we have with us in the studios Dr. M.M. Omokao, who is the Director General of the National Senior Citizens Center. Dr. Omokao, we're glad to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, also here with us in the studios is Professor Adeyinka Fisher, Deputy Director, Partnership and Coordination of the Small and Medium Scale Enterprises Development Agency, SMIDA. Professor Fisher, we're glad to have you this morning.
Good morning.
Okay.
All right, and Dr. Iwot Ndai, I hope I'm right, co-chair, FCT Stakeholders Consultative Forum on Aging, former Executive Secretary, FCT Primary Healthcare Development Agency. So welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
All right, and Professor Asangalem Atman, United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, UNDESA, international consultant on care quality assurance project, and also a consultant geriatrician. So we're glad to have you this morning.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
All right, so it's our pleasure to have all your guests here with us this morning. And let me begin with the Director General of the Senior Citizens Center, Dr. M.M. Omokaro. And so that we save on time, many would argue that it's a new day and a new deal. We have seen new pressures, and this has been particularly so since the removal of fuel subsidy. We've also seen the elimination of multiple windows for foreign exchange and the impact that is causing on the value of the naira, and leading, of course, to the measures that the president has outlined. Curiously, we appear not to have had a conversation around the impact of all of these on senior citizens. Are you concerned?
Of course I'm concerned, as every other Nigerian and every family member would be concerned. We know that the population of the senior citizens, that's one population that have very severe challenges. And one of it is poverty. And poverty, that you see the indices in unattended chronic medical conditions. You see the indices in malnutrition. You see it in even water sanitation, the lack of it. You see it in lack of access to care, acceptable, available care, and all that. And this is also one population that for a very long time was neglected. However, even in the midst of all this, the hope, the courage, and the joy is that this population now has a center that now is concerned and coordinates, and now in the midst of this is accelerating social inclusion of older people in whatever package, whatever goes on. And this is a center, because before you talk about social inclusion and talk about how this help can trickle to where they are in the remote and the hard to reach places, then you must have a structure, you must have frameworks, you must have a system. So before now we could talk all we could care about being concerned. So how do you get to them? You can't get to them. So what are the programs that you can use to get to them? No programs. So but now I can safely say that as much as this really impacts them, then whatever, palliative, whatever resources, however it comes, that we can channel, and we have developed those very impactful programs that can reach older people where they are. So, but the challenge would be that that we run a federal system. This is a National Senior Citizen Center. We have all the policies, we have developed our flagship programs, we have created partnership structures, we have created stakeholder structures, and we have piloted this. And we are at this stage that we are now really accelerating and, practically getting these programs executed. So how will the state government's posture, what is that position? How can we align this? How can we be partners so that whatever we do at the national can now find a complementary implementation system and platform? Because you will see that, please let me just, you see that in the states, the approach to aging is still that welfarist approach, where issues of aging is still in one unit in a social development department, whereas the federal government has stretched issues of aging as social development. And all the programs, you can see that's why Smedan is sitting here. Our health and social care programs, our entrepreneurship livelihood development programs, elder justice programs, capacity enhancement programs, continuing engagement these are development issues. So how do we now filter what are the structures in the states that can align with these programs? So that is where the challenge is.
Well spoken, madam. I could categorize elderly people. For instance, there are those who just retired, who just mid-60s.
Yes.
There are those who are in their mid-60s, early 70s, 80s, and what have you. So if you categorize them, you find out that if you are building any entrepreneurial approach or strategy, it will be for those who are still strong enough to engage in what you are doing. But the other category, who just need welfare to survive, they are not strong again to do anything, have medical issues and what have you. What is the plan for them? You know, when it comes to articulation of ideas and strategies and plans, so we have never found one thing. Not the person like you know, who's been into this for a very long time, even before the center was established. You have on your own, as an NGO, galvanized people, you know, and even sensitized government to begin even to think about the center in the first place. So you have what I call a primary idea of what you're doing or what is going on, and why the challenge you just posed still sustains, because the state governments may not align with what you're doing at the federal level. Because the establishment of your center, I'm not sure other states have replicated that, for you to have agencies to function with. Now we have social, they're all in some ministries, some wish to some ministries and what have you. Now, how do you intend to face this challenge? I wanted to see a situation where today in Nigeria, it will be factored in that the elderly people should be budgeted for. For instance, for those categories from 70 down, should have a stipend on monthly basis, and unfailingly too. You know, because in some other climes, there is a strategy that they used to reach out to them. So how do you decongest this, you know, and see how the challenge can be surmounted?
Okay, yeah, I'm very happy to answer that question. You see, the National Senior Citizens Center knows that this population, like you said, is diverse. You have, on this other hand, the people that are still independent, they have no problem with the daily, you know, activities of daily life. On the other hand, you have those ones that are really poor and vulnerable and need care. So all our programs are developed to target the diverse population. For the population of those who are sick, needing long-term care, in fact, that's why Professor Asanakpan is here, an international consultant. Of course, we are developing a system, a long-term care system that never happened in Nigeria. National benchmarks and standards in curriculum to train caregivers. We are working with NBTE. You know, we have identified social care as a skill. And now we've been able to, you know, integrate it into the National Skills Quality Framework. So now we are developing standards for assessment, certification of caregivers, assessment, certification of care agencies, assessment, certification of trainers, training institutes. So very soon, this long-term care industry is opening up, with only certified caregivers that have career paths, you know, that can move because it's been integrated into, you know, these skills. So for that one, we are taking care of that. And then I want to remind you that for the very vulnerable, the National Social Protection Policy has been revised and now has really integrated older people. The implementation plan has just been done. Older people are really integrated. And this social pension is there as, you know, a policy measure for older persons who are really vulnerable. And NSCC is advocating and pushing that this should be old age grant, just like you have in other climes. And of course, you know, this is going to be terminal because it's later life. And so they take these grants until end of life. And then we also have programs, you know, for the special needs. Like, for instance, those who need assistive devices, those who need social insurance. And now for this care, social care that I talked about, then the National Health Insurance Authority Act has also gladly included older persons under the Vulnerable Care Fund. Those ones to enjoy the Vulnerable Care Fund and without paying dividend. So, but for them to plug it in, we have to develop this system that never existed, this social care system. So we are now even talking to NHIA. I talked to the DG. I said, look, we are building this system. So we should now start, you know, begin to look at how we can plug social care, social insurance for social care for the vulnerable ones who may not necessarily need hospitalization, but who have protracted situation and in their homes. So all those diverse populations have programs targeted at them as well.
Dr. Amokaro, thank you. I want to bring in Dr. Ndayo. The programs and schemes and system that Dr. Emeka has outlined have taken quite some way up to this point. But I would like you to also respond to what may very well be an existential issue for senior citizens. We have, if the camera can get this, we have in front of us here a fruit platter. We have fruits here, right there. What we are saying is that current economic realities have tended now to shake the table, to disrupt young persons, middle-aged, and senior citizens. And the question I asked is, we appear not to reference senior citizens, either in terms of a conversation around the impact of current measures, painful as they may very well be, and a special categorization to say, hey, watch out, look out for these persons. And I remind Dr. Mokau, and that's part of what you will respond to, she had said on Good Morning Nigeria and at some other occasions that, look, part of what is required, for instance, for elderly persons or senior citizens, is for them not to be bolted down in one place. They should have some mobility, and if they don't have any physical disability, go from place to place, visit people. I'm sure she will tell you what the cost of transportation is now, where that cost will come from. Dr. Dayo.
You know me very well that this platter is out of non-living fruits. Anyway, what I don't like.
Living, I mean, we cannot find it. There's apple here, there's carrot, there's banana, which is good for the heart. There's watermelon, mango.
When we are looking for poor people, we are asking for active poor. You are poor and you are actively involved in survival. We look for those ones and support them. When we are talking about older people, we are looking for older people that are active, that are looking out for survival. You may have the categories that you about the people 60 years to 74 years, 75 years to 79 years, 80 years and above. There's the very old and the aged and the young old. So when you look at that, these are different, and you have got to situate them and do what is known as scoping, like human-centered planning. So you don't just throw things on them. You've got to be there, and the planning for care for them is not just done from above. It is bottom up. So you are engaging the family, the cultural issues, the ethics, the ethical issues. You have to put all those ones in perspective, and you've got to design a plan with them, sit down with them and plan that, and then have a timetable, a schedule for implementing that. And then be very flexible on how to, rope all this thing in. So coming from there, with the portals that have been launched for continuing engagement for the older persons, that would be for the young old. The young old, that is 60 years to 74 years, should be having the capacity to still continue to, because we are looking at government forcing people to retire from the civil service at 60 years. They are still active, they are still vibrant, they still have a lot of things to offer. Then you look at somebody that's ever worked for government, that is the informal sector, who has never worked. He has never even left his family or his village. He grew up there farming, toiling, suffering, living in abject poverty, below $2 a day. So that man too is also growing. You look at the people with special needs, who were also born probably they are deaf and dumb and they are growing old. So all those people, it's an inclusive kind of consideration that we are looking at here. And yes, I know that there are so many policies. We are good at policies, guidelines, and plans, but to implement and regulate, very, very important, but lacking in this part of the in our climate. So I think from the gathering people that have come through these experiences to work in the NSCC is giving the country hope that all these loopholes will not show up in the programming for older persons in this country. And secondly, we are looking at those ones that I've told you that are from the informal sector, that have never worked, they have never seen any salary, and but they are artisans. They know how to weave, and they know how to do certain things, that intergenerational interaction, interface may also be necessary. So they could also be engaged to train younger ones on how to,
I'm sorry, Dr.
Yes.
Ndayo.
Yes.
I think the focus of my question is as follows.
I will come to that.
What you are saying is an elaboration on what Dr. Mokaro earlier said, in terms of systems, in terms of frameworks. And I'm saying that those frameworks and systems will have to be implemented, will have to be energized. I'm just saying now that in reality now, look, how does, for instance, a senior citizen function under the current inflationary pressure? That's part of what I'm saying. The answer doesn't have to come from the national. It may very well, you are hearing state government saying palliatives, people who go to work 5 times a week. He said, no, go to work only 3 times a week. You are hearing them say they are going to get CNG powered buses and so on and so forth, so that workers can go to work. They are providing more staff buses. Have you heard any of them say something about what we are going to do for senior citizens and what therefore you would urge them to do?
Kingsley, we have a success story. We have a success story. There was a programming that we had from the NACC for the states and the FCT, where older persons were supported, one-off payment of 20,000 as a vulnerable group. That really worked. How did it work? Because of the consultative forum that has been formed in each state. Each state has a consultative forum. That voluntary organ is keying up with government, the Department of Social Development, and they identify the very poor, because even they are very poor old people that cannot sustain. So that's the one that we're given money. So that channel is still there for each state, and they're working with the social development, So coming to palliative, just as the DG said, I believe that system that already been established would also be used to, facilitate access. So you cannot leave the people. Just as I said, you have got to identify them first. Where are they? Where do they have old people in this country? Where are they located in this country? So each state has been able to, have this consultative forum that is collaborating with the government structure, the social development department or ministry, and then having to contact them, their addresses and everything. And again, with what is coming up now, that the portals for registering caregivers and older persons will be able to capture real time, people that are aging, and the collaboration with the NMC. So you must register. In fact, I would also use this opportunity to tell people out there that you must get older people to register with the National Identification Management Commission. So you have your name, your NIN, that is your national identification number. You are very sure to come into this process. So it will be automatic, like you are getting to 60 years, you'll be rolled into the programming, so we cannot miss you. So those that are not registered, they may lose out. So if you have not been registered yet in the National Identification Number program, you've got to do that so that you'll be captured in any social interventions that will be made for that segment of the population.
Okay, Dr. Ndayo.
Yes.
Until and when Nigerian elderly persons are recognized in terms of what gets to them directly, whatever system or strategy or that have been put in place, may not impact on them.
Absolutely.
Now, I said earlier on when we were having conversation in another segment of newspaper review with my colleagues, I raised the issue of the concerns of elderly people not even discussed at National Assembly. It's not even a topic in the first place. Yes, I know that Dr. Makaro fought hard to sensitize the government to establish the center in the first place. But we're not talking about how has it impacted on these elderly people we're talking about directly. I want to bring in Professor Asangadem. I want to know how to pronounce his name correctly. Professor Asangadem. Oh, great. Now, you are of the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs, an international consultant on care quality assurance project. I want you to give us an idea of what obtains in other clients, because our issue in Nigeria has always been implementation. Dr. Omakaro I'm sure, has very fantastic framework for what can be achieved in this project. But then she cannot do that alone. The subnationals, I'm not sure they're even showing 30% interest in this matter. Now, how can what she's doing be cascaded down to the real elderly people? Well, they all reside in rural areas. That's where they are. So give us an idea of what happens as well, and how all these beautiful strategies can be adopted, implemented, and sustained.
So thank you for this opportunity. The first thing I want to say is that what Dr. Makoro and the National Senior Citizen Center is doing for this country is revolutionary and probably ahead of most countries in Africa. And all countries in the world globally are struggling with the challenge of an aging population. Even where I practice and other high-income countries, there is a strain on the economy, and they can't meet all the aspirations of their own older people. So let me start from this. So let's not assume that there's a place where it's perfect. It's not. It's aspirational. But what I think we're doing here, and what Dr. Makoro and the National Senior Citizen Center is doing, which is key, is that what are the standards? So we have good intentions, and a lot of people will have good intentions, and there are older people, as you said, all over the country in rural areas. What we want to be sure of is that anybody who wants to help, that we have standards, so that these standards are comparable globally to the best practices in the world. And that's part of what this two-day workshop that we're going to be engaging with various stakeholders who have come from all over the country, because they've got lots of experience, and then they are going to hear about what holds or what is practiced in other countries. Now, how do we get down to the grassroots? It's exactly what Dr. Makoro said. We're going to be engaging, hopefully, and that's what she's been doing hard, with the various state governments, with various NGOs, and I hope members of the Nigerian Senate are listening into this program, should reach out to the National Senior Citizen Center and see how what they can use their powerful offices to support the work that's doing. So it's a collaboration, engagement, advocacy, and engaging with older people, I would say.
Now, I'm not putting you on the spot, but I want you to just give us an idea of what, in practical reality, what can be done. You know, I want us to break this down to the level of ordinary people. In fact, the real old people are talking about. Some of them didn't go to school, you know. Assuming my mother is about 90 years now, and maybe every month, you know, she'll get like 5,000, you know, from state government, you know. She'll be singing hallelujah for the government. Apart from all the strategies that could engage other categories of elderly people who are from 60 to 74. But I'm concerned about those from 74 down. Because those ones don't even need any articulation of idea. What they need is, that this month the government recognizes that you take, I think, so on drugs. That you use this amount of money to, you know, cushion the effect of whatever. You know, how you are spending on buying drugs. That's what I want to make people want to hear. Because if you design a program and say other people maybe should converge, so them can't even go to anywhere to go and converge. When my father retired in 1985, he said, "Look, I'm tired of township," and he went to the village and he never came out from there. He died in 92. And so what am I trying to say? How do these people have direct effect of government? How can it be practicable in Nigeria for them to have direct distance from government? Is there any methodology that could be used? Because all the fine framework that she has, I mean, implementation is the issue. Just give us an idea of how one of them can be implemented.
Okay. So again, let me say that there is no place that's perfect. There are many places where I practice where it's sometimes difficult to get to some people because of where they live in a very rural area. And in Britain, there are some areas where, you know, people live in remote communities. In Australia, you know, it's a very large country, you have remote communities. So it's a challenge. But what I always say is we have to be optimistic and we have to start from somewhere. So then the center has been established. We now work, Dr. Makoro and the center are working with the state government, and then the state government has established systems through the local government, through the village centers, whatever that might be, whether it's a health center, whether it's a local office, we want to leverage existing systems to get to the lowest possible level so that we give everybody a chance to engage. That's what we want to do, not establish any new parallel structures. I think we need to use the existing structures which are probably there to engage with people at the village level, at the town level, wherever they might be. Now, you said something that we are doing things and then presenting it to people. No. I was fortunate enough a few years ago to coordinate and lead an international work on what older people and their relatives wanted. And one of the key things they want is they want to be involved in all decisions about anything to do with them. Because we might assume something, and actually older people, depending on where they are in their trajectory, may want different things. And it's very important that we, as I said, we have good intentions, but it's very important that I think we meet what people might aspire to. When someone is very, very old, they may not be that interested in certain things, and they are more looking to be at peace and looking towards dying peacefully. When someone is young, old, they might want to do some part-time work or work fully or even do a PhD. When someone is getting to the stage where maybe, okay, I'm struggling here, they might want other things. So we want to engage and understand that fully. We don't just want to design programs and say, okay, here, this is what it's going to be. So I think the flexibility of how the center is approaching things, engaging with the state government and encouraging the state government to use their levers there and allow us to go through that, we will be able to get to as many people as possible. It won't be perfect, but it will be a very good start.
Right. Professor Akman, thank you very much. I think we need to also remind our viewers that this is not the first conversation we are having on aging and senior citizens. And it's also not the first conversation that we are having on the National Center for Senior Citizens. Dr. M.M. Omokari is a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria. And we've been part of the progress of the establishment of the center and what it has done. I want to come back to this. It's not as if I'm fixated on it. I'm saying, look, let's get from the abstract of saying what we intend to do for senior citizens or what we are doing for senior citizens. And senior citizens themselves are part and parcel of the current environment. I'm happy the Deputy Director of SMIDAN is here, right here with us. Again, Dr. Memo Mokaro, one of our earlier programs, talked about, look, how to keep senior citizens active and busy. I mean, if you can't run a big business, you can run a small business. And here we are, under the palliatives that have been announced, the government talks about nano, micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises. And happily, the DG of SMIDAN, who seated where Dr. Mokaro is seated, was with us last Friday, talking about what will be done in terms of nano businesses and micro businesses. Export Promotion Council was also here, but nano businesses are beneath their radar. But the point I'm saying, and that's where I want you to come into the conversation, in all of this, I haven't heard anything to say, look, when you hear about nano business, you say those who are doing daily paid jobs, those who are buying and selling, there appears to be no special focus on senior citizens as a category to say, as part of our dispensation, 50 billion or whatever it is, this slice will be for senior citizens throughout the Federation. I don't know how this squares with you or what comments you might have.
Okay, thank you very much for this question. The issue of senior citizen as relates to their engagement and then taking them along is a collaboration with what NSCC and SMIDAN is working together. And where are we bringing the senior citizen in is on two folds. The first one is on the area of mentorship and coaching. Because for some of them who are still active, we can engage them on the coaching area to mentor those who are coming up. Because they said you don't buy experience, you earn experience. They have earned the experience and they can share it out to the young ones coming up. And for those who are above 80s and what have you, that require some kind of cares and what have you because of their vulnerability, they will need some kind of giving them a succor for them to be able to live a normal life before they pass on to glory. So what the relationship of NSCC and SMIDAN is coming up is to see how we can engage some of these elderly people in part of our programs. In short, there is a program we call Conditional Grant Scheme. In that Conditional Grant Scheme, this is where we want to engage for some of them who are vulnerable, that they are not active again. They can be included into that program so that on probably monthly or quarterly basis, they will be able to have something as a stipend to keep them going. And for those who are still active, they will be engaged in the mentorship in some of our programs, because SMIDAN, one advantage we have is that we have coverage across the whole federation. We have state offices that NSCC will leverage on in trying to engage all these elderly citizens and then see how they can make them to be active, and at the end of the day, they will be able to provide opportunities for the young one coming up.
Let me say with you, Professor Fisher, you've just a very a good explanation. But I want to know more succinctly, how would SMIDAN engage the elderly people? I mean, in practical terms, to say, okay, so a small and medium scale enterprise, somebody is 60, just retired, and he keyed into SMIDAN. Do you have an original, or a template rather, that you have established to engage such persons? Some of them may have skills, but if that has happened, let us share with you experience you have so far with respect to engaging the elderly, by SMIDAN. If it has not happened in the past, let us know what you have put in place for now to say, look, as soon as Dr. Omakoro and her team comes up with a category of elderly people that could engage SMIDAN, what are you going to tell them?
Okay, on that platform, I think there's a program we have on the BDSP, Business Service Provider. It is meant for those who are probably retired or those who are about to retire. For those who have retired that have between the age of 60 and above, and they have been able to get the certification of that, SMIDAN will engage them in trying to mentor some of our young MSME coming up. And that is very critical, because one thing that we do is that when we are building capacity, we realize that nobody knows it all. And we need to share experiences from different environments. And that's where the issue of using the elderly ones who are professionals in their area of endeavor, that they can come in with SMIDAN to be able to impact knowledge on some of these young ones coming up.
And you pay them money?
Yes, they will have some stipend.
Okay, now, it was still with you. You say this is what you intend to do, not what you are already doing. So, what is the Dr. Emmett, you will have the opportunity to respond. So, to explain, we'll give you the floor. But I'm saying,
where we are now.
Yeah, what is the rollout? What is the rollout, for instance, of this mentorship, and how do you recruit senior citizens, or how do they present themselves for engagement as mentors?
I hope that question is for me.
You can take it.
So, because I've been sitting here and very eager to tell you that NSCC is on the field, and your cameras can go with us to Ushafa. Now, we have a model that we created. First and foremost, we did a national assessment of senior-led indigenous craft. That's when we worked with NTA all over this country. We're able to map 38 major crafts engaged in by older people. And then, because it was a survey, we were able to identify, because we believe in needs assessments first. Like he said, you don't throw things on them. We're able to identify the challenges. 18 states, 6 local government per state. So we were in 108 80 local government areas on foot. NSCC, NDE, trained enumerators. In fact, I should have come with the book we published. Now, having done that, we also engage NSCC countrywide now to now build capacity. Not necessarily training them how to do skills, but telling them now, look, government is interested in what you're doing and you have been doing. And this is precious and is valuable. In fact, we call it gray and vintage. And so we want to build your capacity to understand bookkeeping. to know that the grant that we are giving to you is not for you to go and marry or for you to, you understand, it's for you to get more raw materials, for you to get more hands. So we were able to do that across this country, 36 states plus FCT. We have published that. So we built their capacity and gave them grants. And then after a while, we included the monitoring and evaluation team from the stakeholders because they are in that state. They were able to identify these products and send them. We have the video and all that. We were able to impact 252 as tests. And from our monitoring and evaluation, we see that these people came alive. They were even able to produce more, get more raw material, because this raw material from the survey, within that community, they get them. And we were able to even know that these people, none of them, 85% of them are self-employed, and they have been self-employed, some of them for 60 years, and none of them had ever enjoyed any grant from government. So this was for them the first grant, and that was well documented. So now, and I'm surprised that Sweden didn't say it. Why Sweden is sitting here is that now we are clustering these people into cooperatives. So we are forming multi-purpose cooperatives of these older artisans. Because Sweden advised us that they can only engage if it's cooperatives, because we are now planning to bring in third-party financing. So that's for senior-led indigenous crafts. And then Sweden also has a program where we want to showcase, like a trade fair, called a rare and vintage fair, for the beautiful, wonderful crafts that are dying out. Because part of that survey showed us that the younger people are not interested because of the drudgery. In fact, we approach the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology. We approach NAPTA. How can we bring technology, even rudimentary technology here, that can ease the burden of this drudgery? And we are working with NAPTA on that. So that is for artisans. Now, for the subsistence farmers, because we found out that now there's problem in land acquisition. For instance, we have a program that is called Grandmothers Arise for Good. This was basically focused on older women. Having designed this program to find out in a community, grandmothers, you are the best assets. So what is it that you're doing? We didn't want to introduce any new craft or any new thing. Tell us what you want to do. In Ushafa here, Buhari local government, Buhari council area, they said we want to plant maize, we want to plant cowpea, we want to plant beans. So we said, okay, we'll get you land. But now we ran into unfair norms. There they said, no, women don't own land, and only the men can farm. We said, no, this is called Grandmothers Arise. So let's negotiate. We had many town hall meetings. And then we said, okay, we form into multi-cooperatives. So you don't give the women land, but give the cooperative land. The negotiation now was men must join, older men must join. So we said, okay, we negotiate. 60% women, 40% men. So now that multi-purpose cooperative has been established. I say you can't change the name, because that's the name that we brought in. Grandmothers Arise, but it has 60% older women, 40% older men. How did we get the land? We say, okay, community, give us the land. NSCC is not interested in land ownership. We don't have money to pay you, but we could pay royalties. So now, as I tell you, we were able to facilitate the acquisition of 21.6 hectares of land. And now women, for the first time, had land parceled out for them. We paid for the survey, we paid for the seedlings. If you go there now, fantastic. We can't took Smith to go see there. They have never been happier. But this is what NSCC does. Our approach is multi-sector. When we enter a community, we believe that the only way to sustain older people is to make it a social enterprise. So we entered that community of Shafade. We didn't go alone. We brought ROWASA, FCT, Rural Water Supply and Sanitation, to end open defecation. And part of it is building toilets for these older people and teaching them sanitation and hygiene. We now were able, because we grouped them into multi-purpose, we said, okay, we can get NHIS to give us discount on that Give Me insurance, the group, individual, family health insurance program. So because once you have 10 people minimum, you can pay 15,000 per person. So we are still negotiating for us to have discounts for these older people. And then this multi-purpose cooperative were able, because NIMSI moved their enrollment center to their palace there.
See,
so what I'm trying to tell you is that...
Dr. Mokau, useful examples that you have given.
Yes.
And earlier on, you did say that a chief concern is cascading this to the subnational level. You're setting the example, Shafa, Buhari, XYZ. What is it that you are hearing from the states and local governments?
So this is what we are doing.
Not what you are doing. What are you hearing from them about what they themselves are doing to replicate what you are, to imitate you, so that you have many more persons who are beneficiaries?
Now, we had engaged the Governors Forum, the Secretariat, that we want to speak, at least give us an opportunity to address the government and to tell them the benefit of having a coordinating agency and looking at aging and older persons as a social development and an economic growth opportunity, because there is so much employment that can be created through the care industry. That's what we have put together. The caregivers are going to be trained and certified. So we are selling that, look, investment in older persons is investment that will bring dividend and create employment. That older persons are not, consumers. So whether it's on this end, those ones that are active, we form them into cooperatives that we are, because of Sweden's nationwide, we are taking these cooperatives around with Sweden, so that the stakeholders consultative forum are helping us to facilitate cooperatives. Okay. And so we asked the secretariat, and so we were scheduled, but we had to wait because of the politics and all, and new governments have come in. So we are still pushing to speak to the governors. And there is no program that we have that we do not invite the directors of social welfare, because we built their capacity. We want them to understand that aging is not that small welfare thing. That older people are still capable of being given grants. Yeah. Okay. And older people, that are not well, are capable of having caregivers agency, to be sent to them.
Okay, Dr. Makara. I mean, hearing you speak, makes the things look easy. Because of course you have the facts and figures, you have done your field work, your research and everything, all encapsulated, in what you are going to, expose to the country. If they're going to key into it, especially the subnationals, to key into it. Because if they don't key into that, I'm not sure that what you're doing will trickle down, because the majority of these elderly people are in the hinterland. They are not in the cities. The ones in the cities, yes, they are ones that can still move around, perhaps 60 to 70 or 74 as case may be. The real people, I believe in the real people, they're in the hinterland there.
That's what I'm saying. Our artisan entrepreneurship.
If you have a population, do you have a population?
Yes.
To say, look, between aged people in Nigeria, 60 to 74, 74 to 90, how many are there?
Yes, we do.
How many are in the bracket of 74 to 90? As case maybe. There are also non-pensionable elders who never saw anything from government in their whole life. They are still existing. And I'll give you one example that happened in Anambra State a long time ago. That what they did, the governor then did, was to do a program on elderly people. And what did they do? They focused on non-pensionable elderly people, mapped them out in the 21 council areas of the state, and paid them 10,000 naira on monthly basis for some time. These are non-pensionable, in that state as at that time. I don't know whether that's sustaining that or not. But that's what I was saying, to say, look, if this number of people, these aged people who are in that cadre of 74 downward, they may not be active enough to engage SMEDAN or to engage in what your clustering program that you have. Now, what do you have for those people? We're going to talk about that much later when we come back from this short break. And so stay with us. We'll be back very shortly. All right, you are still tuned to Good Morning Nigeria on NTA Network Service. Well, before we went on break, I was trying to pose a question that has to do with the reality of reaching out to the elderly people, especially those in the hinterland, where, of course, I believe we'll have a majority of them, most of whom are not pensionable in the first place, who never saw the powers of any school in their life. But they are Nigerians and are co-owners of our national cake, if you like. I'm bringing in Dr. Iwotundere here once more. How do you leverage on some of the frameworks put in place by Dr. Makaro and her team as to reach out the more number of elderly people who are residing in the hinterland? I'm more concerned about them, because if you travel to the villages, you look around, you see the real elderly people of Nigeria who don't even have access to hospital, who don't have access to any form of livelihood, and who are not even captured in the first instance, as elderly people of Nigeria, we are putting attention on those who retired. Maybe after 60 years you retire and you're still hanging around in the township, and you say you're an elderly person. Some of them are still going to clubs and stuff like that. Some are still getting married, they're marrying and what have you after retirement. But the real elderly people are there in the hinterland, and I'm not sure they're properly captured. And I want you to talk about that before Dr. Carroll, who I'm sure would like to also
Thank you very much.
talk on that.
Thank you, Mr. Bosha. There are three issues here. Number one, during the short break, I was saying something that only 1%, about 1% of the population, you would say we're civil servants. When we talk about retirees, pensioners, they are just 1%. The greater number of people living out there, they are on their own. Either the private sector or they ever worked for government. And the older people are there. The easiest activity to be marketed is the one that concerns older persons. Because when you're a politician, you are a senator, you are a president, whoever, you must reach 60 years. So you need it. So it is a very important programming. And secondly, when you are looking at the structure for healthy living, the global perspective, and what we are doing here in this country, that you go to mainstream the care of older persons into existing structures to save cost and to encourage sustainability. So to that extent, we are looking at how can you take services to where people live, where people need it. So you have to prioritize. You have to. I'm a very practical man.
How can it be done?
That's what I'm coming to. Yeah. That's what I'm coming to. I'm a very practical. You should know me very, very well.
Yes.
But people that saw me in the office, they will say, why is this man here? You are a field man. Because this is where I belong to. I belong to the community. So you are looking at a situation that you have programming that would encourage other government policies to be implemented. Enhancement, would I say, for instance, when we had polio, eradication of polio, it helped us to strengthen health systems to reach people with routine immunization. So now we are having care for older persons, coming in to strengthen the primary health care system. But we want to use primary health care system as a vessel to drive home, to reach the community structure. Remember, the National Health Act 2014 amended has the community system as part of the national health system. And why do you need a legislation? It enables people to partner with you because you have a law, you have a framework that is going to get people into action, and you can sue, quoting that law if things are not done properly. So to that extent, primary health care that has the capacity to engage the community, because without community there is no primary health care. Community, partnership, intersectoral collaboration, and equity, they are the three tripod. The tripod that the care stands. So when you now put the care for the older persons, as has been done, mainstream that into primary health care, then you are very sure to even make the primary health care work better. So you are having the health care post that is closest to the people, that is, in fact, the primary health care post is expected to be established by the community after they have been sensitized and mobilized. Mobilization is
Dr. in some local government areas, listen, in some local government areas, you don't have a functional healthcare center. The ones that have been established there are left to, in disuse.
It is true.
And they are dilapidated.
Absolutely, it is true. So, opportunity has come again that government should have a trial. So this care for the older people, the care for the older people is going to make that to happen. So we have already the MOU that has been signed with the National Public Development Agency is guaranteeing that. All the 36 states and the they have endorsed that. So that system is going to be activated, and the community health extension workers, the community health influencers, service agents will be engaged. It is already in their programming. Their training curriculum, there is their work scope includes.
Sorry,
this is coming up.
Sorry, Doc,
I'm telling you that.
I'm not being cynical.
Yeah.
The National Primary Healthcare Development Agency will always do its work. Will be the lead agency. On Good Morning Nigeria, 2 ministers of health, one was minister, the other was minister of state. We engaged them here on the revitalization of primary healthcare, primary healthcare centers.
Yes.
How many functional primary health care centers are available in the states now?
Those ones couldn't be done because the committee engagement was properly done. Because you cannot have primary health care without community engagement. That's what I kept saying.
But I'm telling you that the subnational entities did not get up to scratch. That is the challenge, and that's why I'm sorry, please, so that we don't lose time. Well, you can have optimistic projections at the national level and then do your work. But our critical concern now would be, look, what percentage of the population of senior citizens will you be able to reach ultimately? And part of what we find is, look, the federal government at the national level does most, if not all, of the hard work. And all that is required from the subnational entities is to just key in, like water. Federal government will build dams just for you to go there and then do reticulation to your cities and rural areas. You'll be hearing grammar. Others will not be building airports. But I want to come back to Professor Fisher very quickly so that we don't lose sight of this issue. You talked about the common engagement of senior citizens as mentors in your mentorship program. How is that going to work? If it hasn't started, if it has started, how is it working? And in which fields are you getting these mentors?
Okay, thank you very much. The program is about to start, and already we have a lot of BDSPs who have shown interest. What I mean by BDSPs is the business service providers who have been able to be certified by SMEDA. Some of them have attained that age of 60 and above, and some of them are below that age. For those of them who are 60 and above, those are the people who engage to provide mentorship and coaching based on their professional callings. Because when we are looking at MSME, it is in different diverse.
Sir, when you say MSME, please could you just say
micro?
No. Yes, I understand what you're saying. I want to say, is it vulcanizers, people in fish farming, people like I want to call names. So,
so when we are talking about aquaculture, those who are carpenters, those who are bricklayers, those who are into farming.
But these are not government workers, so
they are not government workers.
These are people who on their own, who retired on their own, who are not in any government whatever framework, did not work with any government. Is that what I'm talking about?
Yeah, those are the ones that the business service provider will mentor.
Engage. Okay, will engage. Okay.
So based on that, now it will go a long way to let them share experiences and then to let them understand where are the gaps, and then how those young ones can key into it, and then from there.
Tell us the mechanism for the mentorship program. You say you have BSPs that will come up. Let's just say, is it throughout the states of the federation or selected states of the federation? When is it starting? What are the modalities? How does somebody get in which skills, in which skill fields will you need these persons, and what would the recompense, or what are the challenges that you have tried to overcome in kickstarting?
Okay. When we are talking about the BDSPs, before you are given that certificate, we will have know where is your area of calling in terms of your profession. So it will be based on that we are going to fix you into the needs environment. Like those who are into fish farming, we have people who have studied, who have calling on agriculture, who understand the practicability of growing, harvesting fish, or probably those who are into construction, who have been an engineer in their early life before becoming an old citizen. They will be able to mentor those who are going into the area of probably carpentry or bricklayer or becoming electricians and what have you. So based on that, and like I've said, SMEDAN has offices in the 36 states of the Federation plus Abuja. And SMEDAN is not just limiting it to a particular state. We deploy our BDSPs across the state based on needs.
Okay, thank you. Professor,
I'm sorry, we want to ask a question. You'll be talking about engineers, carpentry, and so on and so forth. Dr. Mokaro mentioned that there's also a need to ramp up the skills of these small-scale persons in terms of, for instance, bookkeeping. So why don't you also get accountants who are retired, who are old citizens, who can basic? Because you didn't mention
sorry, let me. when I'm talking about the BDS, I have said earlier that it cut across.
Yes.
It's not just a particular field or whatever. Accountants, lawyers, name them.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Professor Hartman. Let me begin once more. Because the time is actually running out. I brought you an idea of what took place in one of the states. That paid attention to non-pensionable elders and made sure they were getting stipends, for a while. So that some persons who are not even captured in any government entity, and they're more in number if you count them. That's what the reality is. And elsewhere, even let me say America, for instance, persons who have disability, not necessarily physical disability per se. Some could have accident, perhaps he touched one part of his body and is categorized as somebody who is not capable of walking, and he's being paid until he dies. Some of them are in the early 30s and 20s, as case may be. Are you now saying that there's no possibility of reaching out to those 75 years and above that did not see the falls of any school and that citizens of Nigeria and are more in number, to reach them on monthly basis for them to have something directly from government? It's not a possibility.
So that's not what I'm saying, absolutely not. But as you realize, and we all realize, you need legislation and you need our government and our Senate President, Senator Fabio, and his colleagues to be able to do this. Dr. Makaro, none of us here can stand up and say and make promises, because that will be a false promise. But certainly, that is something that as a country we should do. We should look after our elders. And if people are disabled, if people cannot fend for themselves, they should be able to apply for an allowance that will allow them to live well. And we should honor them by doing that. And I will appeal to our government, our new government, the President, the Senate President, and all the senators to please consider this in their deliberations.
Okay, Professor Akman, thank you very much. I want to draw our attention again to coping with current economic pressures. I recognize yet again that Dr. Makaro, yours is at the national level, but I'm wondering, for instance, whether we couldn't have some further mitigation or amelioration of the impact of, say, fuel subsidy removal. Some states, Lagos for instance, says BRT bus rides slashed 50%. They removed 50% from the fare. And then yellow buses, so-called downfall buses, slashed that by 25%. But we know the practice in Lagos, for instance, for many decades, where if you are a uniformed officer and you are boarding either a downfall or Molue, when Molue was still in vogue, you will call yourself a staff. If you are a staff, it means you don't pay. Sometimes, brawls break out when two or more staff try to enter the same bus because the conductor will say, you are cheating us. I'm just wondering, is it not possible to engage with RITIAN? RITIAN is the Road Transport Employers Association, and not you, to say for senior citizens, have a discounted fare for them. I don't have a lot of gray hair on my head, but assuming I went to board a bus, for instance, and he said, look, I'm a senior citizen. You talked about senior citizens ID card one time. Yeah, so I would like you to respond to that. What is it that we can do in the meantime so that senior citizens, because you slash the fare, good thing, 50%. I'm working, Kenyan is working, he will pay the same thing. The senior citizen who's no longer working will also pay the same. In other words, you are depleting the resource. So countrywide, or in most parts of the country, can we get this kind of mitigation?
Firstly, I really want to thank you that this concern is now being, shared across Nigeria. And I also want to say that we should not dismiss the systems and the models and these clusters that NSCC is creating across this country with stakeholders. Because if we wait for the states to start, the first question is, where are the senior citizens? Who are the senior citizens? So these are the structures that NSCC has created. And I said that we are working with Sweden now, having now piloted this program and seen the success and published. it is very easy to speak to a state governor now and say, these are the models, and this is how you can do it. You can tweak it to your state. Easy for them to now say, okay, we can budget for this, and easy for them to see the benefits. But if you go and speak in abstract, you say, so where are the systems? And don't forget that aging in the states is still that welfare. You still call 3-4 of them and give them something. So NSCC has been able to stretch that and build the mechanisms and the systems and tested them. So now with Smeden now, all these multi-cooperatives are springing up where we had gone to do the national assessment, both for the farmers, the subsistence farmers, and for the artisans. I said that. Then the other system that we built, that we now signed an MOU with Smeden to key in, is what he was trying to explain. That's why I said, let me key in there. You ask, how do you get the senior citizens? How do you know who is an accountant engineer? NSCC has built that model. So now we have a continuing engagement bureau. In fact, why you don't see it, you still see it on your screen now with all our jingles and all that, is that we needed to build the front gate for verification. Because we know that once that jingle comes out, because it has to do with job creation partnerships and labor market agreement with retirees, and it's not just for professionals. There is also the artisans. There is also the cooperatives on that platform, the portals. And so we needed to verify that whoever comes in, there's a place you put in your name, and we verify whether you're truly 16. So on that platform, you have professionals. Are you an accountant? Are you an engineer? Are you an artisan? Are you in the agro-allied industry? Fill in your profile and all that. That is where Smeden will go now and then search and get, working with NSCC, all those skills that they need for what they are doing. So I'm trying to say that NSCC has worked in the past 2 years to build all these mechanisms and processes that you need, that you can take anywhere, and it is very easy for state government to key in. The unfortunate thing is that NSCC does not have the money to now do the social safety nets. But what NSCC has done is that we have identified, for thank God now you talk about legislation, we have the legislation. The National Social Investment Bill was signed into law shortly before the last government left. And so we have that act, the National Social Investment Act. And older persons, we fought very hard, older persons are listed there. So once they start with roll out this, NSCC is frontline #1, an advocacy agency. NSCC will push to ensure that where they say, where are the older persons? We point to you. These are the older persons. We have them. So what we have done now is that we now have data on older persons. We know where they are. We know those ones living with disability. We know the poor and the vulnerable. And we have been able to cluster them. We have been able to build programs.
You know them, sorry, madam. You know those clusters. Is it from local government areas in the country? Or
yes. I tell you. The NASCO, this NASCO social register, has data on the poor and vulnerable, and we work with NASCO to disaggregate for us the poor and vulnerable up to local government. So we can tell a state governor how many older people are in your state. That one we work with MBS. We know from MBS disaggregate data for NSCC how many older persons projected are in different states, how many are in local government, men, women, we know all that. So once because we have developed this program, we can tell you, if you want to take it to this local government, these are the older people.
Doctor, we are running out of time. You know, listening to you, of course, you'll be endless, because you have all the stuff that you need to have. And you've done a very good job, you know, since you took over the NSCC. No doubt about that. But the implementation of your framework and strategies is what we are asking for from government, and whoever can do that, like this is social corporate responsibility that we talk about. All these big time multinationals in the country can donate to the welfare of elderly people using NSCC, a credible agency, and have somebody with high integrity, you know, in the place. And so on that note, we'll call it a day here. We're going to assemble again. I mean, no distant time to discuss elderly people. I am part of this.
Of course you are.
So you have to, you know, is it? Okay. Dr. M.M. Omokaro.
Finish your question.
Dr. M.M. Omokaro, Director of National Senior Citizen Center. We thank you indeed for coming here. She is a gerontologist, is it? Yeah. I mean, there are words and there are words. Okay, Professor Adenka Fisher, Deputy Director, Partnership and Coordination, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDAN. Yes, I want to engage because I'm a senior citizen.
Yes.
We will engage SMEDAN. Okay, Dr. Iwo Tundayo, co-chair FCT Stakeholders Consultative Forum on Aging, former Executive Secretary FCT Primary Healthcare Development Agency. We are still looking for a primary care center. Professor Ansagadem Akban, UN's Department of Economic and Social Affairs International Consultant on Care Quality Assurance Project and a consultant on geriatrician. We appreciate you being here this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of you. Fisher, also, I was appreciated you. Yeah. Okay.
All right, so that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. We thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow is another day, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Kyrian. Do have a good day.
Information